Maybe I'm crying inside. Maybe I'm getting up so many times a night and I just can't take it anymore, that inside I'm imploding and I just want to cry all night long because the situation is so difficult for me that I can no longer tolerate it. Or maybe my partner is crying because he's sleeping on the couch and I just don't know what else to do because my baby needs me and that's how I seek quiet. And so my partner's on the couch and our relationship is taking a toll. And so it could be that we're crying internally because the situation is very, very taxing on our relationship. Now, we've had videos on crying in the past, but I'm choosing to talk about crying again because this week specifically in my practice, I have had many, many families kind of have a shift in their perspective through the way that I explained crying. And I would like to share that with you today. Crying is natural, right? We all do it. It's a natural way to release frustration. It's what happens when we reach overwhelm or when we're sad. We release emotion and that comes through crying. And we do also recognize that when we have crying, sometimes that creates a certain discomfort in us, either because we don't want to be crying or because we have a hard time holding space for the person in front of us who's crying. So in this video, we're going to talk about 3 main points. The first one is recognizing who's crying. The second one is going to be, what is my intention when I show up as a parent? What am I putting my focus on? And the third point we're going to talk about is what I'm doing sustainable long-term for a healthy, thriving family dynamic? So let's dive into point number 1. Let's recognize who's crying. So you probably are thinking, this is very silly. Of course my child is crying. Who else would be crying? So that's true. Your child may be crying or maybe not. Sometimes the crying happens and that creates a certain discomfort in us. And then we recognize my child's crying, it makes me feel uncomfortable, and so I need to do something about it. So that could be one point. But a lot of times that's not what's happening. A lot of times we can actually pacify our children quite well because the crying makes us feel uncomfortable. So our child is actually not crying anymore because we're doing a whole song and dance to make sure that they're not, be it during the day or at night. But then that means that maybe I'm crying. So we want to think about who's crying. Is it the child crying? Because that definitely does raise stress and gives us the understanding that we want to take care of the situation. Is it me who's crying? Am I doing something to achieve quiet that just doesn't sit right with me, or it's just too taxing on my well-being, and so I'm internally crying? Is my husband or my partner also crying because our relationship is taking a toll? So we want to think about who is crying, okay? It could be the child, it could be the parent, but it could also be the system. The system meaning the family system. And I find that way too often, and this was really the point that was driven home this week in my practice, way too often the family system is crying. And that means that the system is not viewed as a system, but rather just as the individual parts. And we hyper-focus on one part. And so this part is going to be just the child. I'm just going to focus on the child. Or I'm just going to focus on, what needs to happen right now so that there is no crying. And then we completely throw the family system under the bus. And then we wonder why that's not sustainable. So think about this in your family dynamic. Who is crying? Recognize who are the parties crying in the system, because it's not just about your child. If we want well-being, we want well-being in the entire family system. And I invite you to start wrapping your head around that concept, that this is not about the child. We don't just give birth and then everything's about the child. Because what about the rest? There's like such a beautiful entity that we can grow. And when we put focus only on one specific thing that needs to happen, we lose track of all the other parts that can create really almost like a beautiful garden. We're not just looking at one specific flower, we're looking at the whole entire thing. And how do we cultivate that soil in order for everything to grow and to flourish the way that we want it to? If that's what we're looking at for our family system, we need to look at the system as well and not just on the individual parts. Okay? So the next point we want to talk about is, what is my intention? And you guys know I'm all about intention. I love to think about how I show up in different situations, knowing that I'm acting in accordance with my values, that what I'm saying really jives with what I'm feeling. And when I think about intention, I think about love and fear. And so we can show up with love and we can show up with fear. And it's not necessarily an either or, because of course we live in a relational world and both of them are going to come up for us. But we do want to know, how are we acting? How are we responding to our children? When we're acting out of fear, we're putting focus on what we don't want. So I don't want crying. And so then I'm showing up out of fear because I really don't want this to happen. So my focus is on what I don't want to have happen, which is probably going to create more of what you don't want to have happen. Because where focus goes, energy flows, right? We've all heard that meme or that quote. We want to make sure that we're putting focus not necessarily on what we don't want or on the fear or on the quick fix, okay? Or only on the part, so only on the child. We want to make sure that we're putting focus on what we do want to have happen. And what we do want to have happen comes from love. And what we do want to have happen is sustainable long term. And we create something that's going to be able to carry the family system through past one specific point of, for example, stopping crying. Okay? So when we look at the system, when we look at the family as a system, as the system that needs cultivating, as the system that needs well-being, we are all of a sudden in a bit of a zoom out where we can then get a broader perspective of what's trying to happen without necessarily just hyper-focusing on one specific thing, wondering when is it going to stop and when is it going to go away. And point number 3 is from the GPS Within. You guys remember the GPS Within is a model that I've created with my partner, Rivka Klein. You guys can find out more information about that under the gpswithin.com. I invite you to check it out. We'd love to have you with us there as well. There's a principle, a fundamental principle in the GPS Within that says, if it's not good for one, it's not good for anyone. I'm just going to repeat that for a second. If it's not good for one, it's not good for anyone. Now, to me, that's mind-blowing. This is a principle that I take with me. This is kind of what the principles do. They sit with you, and then you get into situations in life, and you think to yourself, wait a minute. So I remember that principle. Does it work here? Can I juxtapose it on this situation? And you will find that it does work every time. So here in family systems, here in making things work and thrive for our families, if something doesn't work for one, it cannot be good for anyone in the system. That means compromising mom's well-being by having her needing to get up, 8 times a night to pacify her child cannot be good for the system. It cannot be right for the family system if mom is waking up too many times a night and therefore her well-being is not taken into consideration. So we're taking into consideration the well-being of the child, of course, and the well-being of the mother, and the well-being of the partner, of course. We need the whole system to be thriving, okay? So I want us to stay in line with our intention. I want us to choose how we're going to show up because we have a why. And that why is because we want our family system to thrive. So I'm going to work on my child's sleep, not so that I get quiet or that we achieve quiet. I would like to work on my child's sleep so that the whole entire family is thriving. And that's a much more powerful intention, a much more powerful why that allows us to stay in line with our values, not just the values that we have for our child, the values that we have as a family, the values that we have as a system. And so that might make the difference in how we choose to show up. Because if I think I'm showing up in a situation to achieve quiet, then I'm just putting out fires all night long, right? That's what we do. Think about what's being compromised and choose intentionally from a place of love. And when you choose from a place of love, you're not just choosing for the other, you're choosing for the system. So because a lot of times I say to the families that I'm guiding, you want to choose from a place of love. And then they'll say, I love my child so much. I'm only doing this out of love for my child. And then I say, what about the love for you? What about the love for your family? Because if you're not there, how do they get the best of you? If you're not there because you're so exhausted and resentful for getting up a million times at night, how is that for the benefit of the system? How do you then show up in your partnership? Are you showing up on a full tank? Or is then that couplehood compromised? So let's not compromise anyone. Let's think in a different way. Let's take a broader perspective. Let's zoom out a bit and look at the family system and recognize that we are working towards the well-being of the entire family system. And we are going to create a solution that doesn't throw anybody under the bus, that takes everybody's well-being into consideration. And that way we create a situation that's sustainable long-term, as opposed to this being something that's, just going to be a quick fix until the next time it shows up again. If you're interested in learning more, I have a bundle called Me the Parent in my online digital course. It will give you a wealth of information on how it is you want to show up so that you can show up centered and stable for your family system and also for yourself. I invite you to check it out. I hope this sheds light on how you want to show up, on what your intention is going to be when you show up, and why you are showing up the way that you're showing up. giving you a bigger, broader perspective around what's most important here and helping you find well-being for you, your family, and everybody involved. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks for being with me.